The King's Avatar, Chapter 1485 Saving Trouble. Audio source, wushawworldaudiobook.com. Chapter 1485 Saving Trouble. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. The flying meteor was about to strike -9 degrees. For a moment, whirling flames covered Chinmayun's view. He could only rely on his experience and intuition to make his next move. But his every action was within Yizhu's predictions. A figure suddenly appeared inside the sea of fire as if he were born from the fire, Lord Grimm. A distance of 3 steps. Chinmayun had chosen to retreat. The distance between -9 degrees and Lord Grimm was 3 steps. Chinmayun had shown a 3-step gunfu previously, and it appeared to be a distance that he could maintain. However, Chinmayun knew why it seemed like that. His 3-step gunfu wasn't perfect. He didn't have complete control over moving in and out within 3 steps. But because of his outstanding positioning, he occasionally found spots where he could perform gunfu within 3 steps. When those moments came, he would choose to step forward and perform a 3-step gunfu like he had done previously in his exchange with Lord Grimm. After all, the closer the steps, the higher the threat. When he was no longer able to maintain it, he would move back. By relying on his positioning skills, Chinmayun was able to form his own unique form of gunfu, which allowed him to keep the threat of gunfu up while staying at a comfortable distance. However, right now, Chinmayun wasn't in a position where he could perform gunfu at this distance of 3 steps. There may have been an opportunity at one point, but the spot that Lord Grimm was in destroyed Chinmayun's last hopes. "I've been seen through." Chinmayun knew that his technique and his intent had been seen through. Every step he took was uncomfortable for him. The first strike had hit his vital point. As expected of the one who's fought with Captain for 10 years and often had the upper hand. Chinmayun felt all. When he had started his journey, Yizhu had already retired. However, his existence was a part of excellent Tyra's history and Tyranny's history, the villain in Tyranny's story. Chinmayun had heard of the stories and had seen Yizhu's accomplishments. He had fought against him in the team competence during the regular season. But in this 1v1, he finally experienced for himself just how terrifying Tyranny's villain was. Do I still have a chance? Once Lord Grimm closed the distance between them, he tried to fight while retreating. He looked for ways to escape. The window, the door, the corner over there. There wasn't much space in the room. Every exit seemed so close, but close did not mean reachable. Lord Grimm blocked him from moving towards those exits. Finally, -9 degrees was forced into a corner. Without enough space, he couldn't even execute gunfu. At this point, sharpshooters practically had no options left. Chinmayun realized that he had made a mistake in the beginning. Choosing to fight in this enclosed space had been a grave mistake. But if he hadn't entered the room, if he had waited up on the roof to ambush Lord Grimm, he would have been caught by Lord Grimm's sneak attack. Chinmayun had already started to review this match, and when he came to this point, he could only stare blankly at his screen. Throughout this match, Yizhu had the initiative every step of the way. It was because Yizhu knew that his positioning was outstanding, so he could always make an accurate prediction of where he would move to. When Lord Grimm went through the window onto the roof to sneak up on -9 degrees, he missed. Why? Wasn't it because Chinmayun had dropped through the hole in the roof into the room? Yizhu hadn't covered this option because from a certain perspective, he knew that it wasn't a smart one. However, Chinmayun really did choose this unwise option, throwing Yizhu's plans into disarray for a bit. Chinmayun felt like he had realized something. When facing against an opponent like Yishu, the optimal option was not always the best option because the opponent knew what that optimal option was. I lost. Chin Mayun's -9 degrees fell. However, he had taken out 43% of Lord Grimm's health too, so it wasn't too bad. After careful observation and thought, Li Yibo finally noticed the key points in this match and began speaking confidently about the competitive positioning between the two players. In the end, the older, the wiser, Yishu is more skilled. Li Yibo sighed. But what about here? Pan Lin hinted at the broadcast director to show a replay. When Lord Grimm broke the rooftop and fell down, he blocked a few shots with his Myriad Manifestations umbrella. But when he retracted his umbrella, he couldn't see his opponent. However, he quickly deduced Chin Mayun's position and found him soon afterwards. Chin Mayun wasn't in the optimal position, so how did Yishu figure out where he was and then fake an attack? Pan Lin asked. Ha! Li Yibo laughed with delight. It's true that Chin Mayun didn't pick the optimal position, but picking the right spot is dependent on the circumstances. At that time, not only did Chin Mayun need to pick a spot, he needed to take advantage of Yishu's blind spots and move while Yishu couldn't see him. I see. Pan Lin understood. Under these conditions, Chin Mayun's position is, in fact, optimal. Li Yibo said. But if Yishu had figured out Chin Mayun's position, why didn't he drop down and directly attack him? Why bother faking an attack? Because Chin Mayun really had picked a very good spot. Look, if Lord Grimm landed on the ground first, he wouldn't have been in a good position to launch an attack. In fact, -9 degrees would have had more space. By faking an attack, he was able to move to a better position to attack, Li Yibo explained. Oh. Pan Lin felt enlightened and felt even more appreciation for Li Yibo. He had been won over by his analysis. In other words, the purpose of Yishu's feint was to paralyze the opponent and to move to a better position, Pan Lin concluded. That's right. Li Yibo nodded. He felt proud that he had seen through the issue. What an amazing fight. Pan Lin sighed. Chin Mayun was beaten by Yishu at his own game. I hope it won't affect him later. Quote. That was what Li Yibo said, but it was evidently a way of phrasing what he wanted to say in a nicer way. In reality, he was pointing out that Yishu beating Chin Mayun would be a blow to tyranny's morale. But despite Yishu having the upper hand, Chin Mayun was still able to take down 43% of Lord Grimm's health. Chin Mayun performed quite well. Pan Lin said. Yes, especially in the latter half of the fight, where he was backed into a corner. Sharpshooters have a very difficult time fighting in those conditions. Li Yibo said. Let's see who tyranny will send up next. Pan Lin said. By this time, Chin Mayun had left the player booth. The camera had zoomed in onto him for some time. Li Yibo had seen his expressionless face and had said the words, I hope it won't affect him later, as a response. The two commentators found a few praiseworthy moments for him before discussing the next matchup. But in the eyes of the experts, the discussion of the match wasn't finished yet. 43% seems a bit much. Huang Shaoshan messaged Yuan Zhu. WuxRWorldAudio.com. Yishu had the clear upper hand. Using nearly half his health to take down the opponent was a bit excessive. His opponent didn't make it easy. Chin Mayun's positioning is truly outstanding. Yuan Zhu replied. When the two experts chatted with each other, they didn't need to explain every detail like the commentators. They just need to touch upon the main point. If he gave himself more space and put more pressure on him, he could have reduced the damage he took. Huang Shaoshan replied. But it's more risky, and it would have increased the amount of inputs he would have need to make. Yuan Zhu said. so he's trying to save his energy. Huang Shaoshan said, "That's why we tried to wear him down." Yu Wenzhou said, "That bastard." Huang Shaoshan cursed. They had drawn up a strategy, targeting what Yishu had been worried about, but Yishu was able to neutralize it. When Huang Shaoshan thought back, he felt even more helpless. On the other hand, Yishu's simple and crude setups for Blue Rain all hit their target. For example, take Blue Rain's Mr. Clutch, Song Seo. His playoffs run was truly depressing. He had gained fame from his plays in the playoffs. It was as if the playoffs was his home. But his performance in Blue Rain's 2 rounds against Happy, in the team competition, as the 6th player, he was often the Mr. Clutch that helped Blue Rain open up the field, yet before he could even do anything, the match had already been decided. Mr. Clutch wasn't on the field at the crucial moments. How could he be clutch if he wasn't there? Happy had crudely placed Song Seo on the back burner. Let's see who Tyranny will send up next. Quote, "It wasn't clear if it was because Yu Wenzhou had also recalled their loss against Happy, but he now switched topics. The big screen displayed Tyranny's next player, Zhang Jiale, Spitfire, dazzling 100 Blossoms. The crowd booed. Zhang Jiale had returned to the scene, abandoning 100 Blossoms and during Tyranny. 100 Blossoms viewed him as a traitor. The fans of other teams, including Tyranny, looked down on his conduct. The current Zhang Jiale was nowhere near as popular as before. There were always people who would criticize his moral character, and Happy's home stadium was no exception. As soon as Zhang Jiale appeared, boos and curses were immediately thrown his way. Zhang Jiale was used to it. It had been 2 years. He could even face 100 Blossoms calmly now. None of those boos or criticisms counted as anything. 2 years. Zhang Jiale was counting his days. He knew that, for people like him, every day that passed was one less day. If they failed this year, what about next year? Did they have a next year? But none of them could have expected that the one blocking their way would be Yishu. As he walked onto the stage, Zhang Jiale couldn't help but recall those glorious years when the two had once battled. End chapter. The King's Avatar, Chapter 1486, One Person's Dream, audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1486, One Person's Dream. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. Yishu, a first-generation pro player. Zhang Jiale, a second-generation pro player. There was only a year between them, so there was no need for any courtesies for seniority. Though Yishu would sometimes act the wise, knowing elder, Zhang Jiale clearly had no care for it. The two's first real top-level face-off was in the 3rd season of the Glory Pro League. That season, Team 100 Blossoms Sun Zheping and Zhang Jiale, their blood and blossoms had fully matured, sweeping across the alliance and taking first place in the regular season. However, in the end, in the finals, they were met with excellent ira. The story of how one autumn leaf cut through their combo with his evil annihilation had become a legend in this scene. In the end, blood and blossoms fell into the background. Zhang Jiale wouldn't accept that, of course, so they returned anew in the 4th season. But this season, they didn't even make it into the finals. The season came to a close with the legendary battle where Tyranny ended Excellent Ira's dynasty. Blood and Blossoms once more became no more than a passerby. In the 5th season, 100 Blossoms came back in high spirits, ready for the new season after 3 seasons of experience. That was when their captain, Sun Zheping, was forced to retire mid-season, in his golden years, due to a hand injury. Zhang Jiale took over as captain and Team 100 Blossoms charged forward amidst their tears, empowered by their sorrow, straight into the finals. However, the result was that they lost against the one who joined the scene in the third season, known throughout the glory scene as the Magician. They lost to the one who, as rumor would have it, was the closest to the god of glory, the closest to erecting a dynasty like Yi Zhu did. They lost to Wang Jiexi. Wang Jiexi became Hundred Blossom's worst nightmare. In the seventh season, when they were mere inches away from reaching the championships again, it was Wang Jiexi who shattered their dreams once again. 7 years and 3 runners-up, it was almost as if Hundred Blossoms was plagued by some sort of curse. When they fell to Wang Jiexi this time, Blood and Blossoms had been left in the past, and this had become an accomplishment of Zhang Jialei's efforts alone. Perhaps it was because he thought that it was already the best he could do alone. One summer later, Zhang Jialei suddenly announced his retirement. Today, the story of Blood and Blossoms had truly ended. Though Sun Zheping had already retired in the 5th season, Zhang Jialei had always fought for the both of them. No one could understand what sorrow he felt, what disappointment he lived in. The people would only sigh. If Sun Zheping didn't retire from his injuries, if Sun Zheping had been there all along, then would Blood and Blossoms have erected a Hundred Blossoms dynasty after excellent era fell? There were no ifs. These ifs were nothing but knives to the heart for those involved. Zhang Jialei had never given up, otherwise, he wouldn't have carried the responsibility and dream that two were meant to bear and gritted his teeth, charging onwards alone. Unfortunately, he still fell in the end and gave up. Blood and Blossoms was a story of two. One person wouldn't be able to write that perfect ending. However, for him personally, there was still a dream in his heart, an everlasting dream. After a season, he returned, abandoning his old home Hundred Blossoms and enduring tyranny, a pandering move he was despised for. Zhang Jialei had doubted his choices, but ultimately, he didn't regret it. He affirmed his goals. Now, he stood here, still in control of dazzling Hundred Blossoms, but it was tyranny he was fighting for. As for his opponent, Yi Zhu wasn't unfamiliar, but his character was the unspecialized Lord Grimm, representing the new Team Happy. Familiar scene, familiar characters, but different people? No, the people were the same people, but everything else was messed up. However, no matter what happened, his dream of the championship would never change. Bang! A sudden gunshot startled everyone. Zhang Jialei's dazzling Hundred Blossoms had just loaded into the map and suddenly shot a bullet into the air. Click, click, click. Dazzling Hundred Blossoms switched rapidly through his cartridges before heading off. This was a habit of Zhang Jialei's. It was still the same map, and both chose to go the middle path, so they arrived in the manor in the middle of the map one after the other. Lord Grimm went in directly through the front door, and dazzling Hundred Blossoms straight through the back door. Although Spitfires were a gunner class, they had many different kinds of attacks and were called the Majors of Gunners. Their battle styles didn't need a lot of space like sharpshooters and launches. An enclosed speed was equally as convenient. In fact, there were some enclosed terrains that Spitfires excelled in. The manor had 2 floors. Yi Zhu and Qin Muyun's battle happened entirely on the 2nd floor. The map wouldn't refreshed, so the 2nd floor was still in complete disarray from the previous battle. -9 degrees as bullets had turned the rooms that the two characters had fought intensely into a complete mess. However, Lord Grimm and dazzling Hundred Blossoms were still on the 1st floor. Both characters were wary, each step taken with infinite caution. Yi Zhu was familiar with the map. Lord Grimm first watched the window for a while, like he did against Qin Muyun. After not seeing any signs of dazzling Hundred Blossoms, he was clearly acting on the thought that he probably came in through the back door. As for Zhang Jialei, he had clearly lost the initiative since he didn't know the map. After entering through the back door, he cautiously surveyed his surroundings, the room layout, the doorway. After entering the room, he glanced around several times and randomly went for the doorway that led to the hallway, opening it with a creak. The audience held their breath. In the corridor outside the doorway, Lord Grimm was carefully walking over. The sudden opening of the door would expose Zhang Jialei's position. Careless. He knows it's a corridor, Pan Lin was saying, but then suddenly shut up. Knowing that the corridor was here, he should be on guard for the possibility of his opponent to just so happen to be passing by. He was about to say that, but then, he shut up because he saw that after Dazzling 100 Blossoms opened the door, he didn't walk out. Creak. The door opened, then closed again, creaking all the while. Lord Grimm, in the corridor outside, already had his myriad manifestations umbrella raised. Lord Grimm pointed towards the doorway as he silently edged rightwards to give himself a better view of the room. Creak. The door continued to close, with only a sliver of an opening left. Was he not coming out? Just as everyone thought this, Dazzling 100 Blossoms darted out suddenly. The door was slammed open again. Dazzling 100 Blossoms had the door behind him as cover, his right hand holding his automatic handgun Hunter-Seeker out in front of him. Zhang Jialei saw Lord Grimm immediately. Ye Zhu also saw the charging Dazzling 100 Blossoms immediately. Gunshots. Both guns spat embers simultaneously. However, for normal shots, the Myriad Manifestations umbrella was a rifle. Each reload allowed for 2 shots. Meanwhile, Dazzling 100 Blossoms was using an automatic handgun. On top of that, he had the Spitfire class skill ammunition expansion, which affected normal attacks as well. The number of shots they could fire in that moment were on 2 completely different levels. So Lord Grimm immediately attacked with the skill anti-tank missiles. 3 missiles shot out in rapid succession. Boom boom boom. In the narrow corridor, the 2 characters aimed their guns at one another. The shots they fired collided, exploding. A thick smoke billowed out and enveloped the corridor, and the force of the explosion sent both characters backwards. Ye Zhu didn't retreat. With a push of his mouse, Lord Grimm used slide kick, charging straight at the billowing smoke. That's too daring. Pan Lin cried out in surprise. It was an unknown situation, but it wouldn't be hard to guard against Ye Zhu going on the offensive. So long as Zhang Jialei was on guard, he could just throw a few grenades into the smoke. How would Lord Grimm dodge that? However, when he saw the exact direction Lord Grimm had aimed his slide kick in, he realized something was wrong. Was he planning to slide kick the wall? In that moment of confusion, Lord Grimm had already slid to the wall. Boom boom boom. WuxRWorldAudio.com. As expected, flashes of explosions bloomed amidst the smoke. Zhang Jialei had been prepared for the possibility of an attack. However, in this moment Lord Grimm slid to the wall and then suddenly jumped up. He unsheathed his ninjutsu from the Myriad Manifestations umbrella, swinging in and stabbing it into the wall. With a leap, he pulled the blade and swung again. He was running along the wall. Pan Lin stared in shock. The whole audience stared in shock. The corridor was narrow, so the force of the explosions enveloped the entire area. But with the wall to brace himself on, Lord Grimm wouldn't be thrown back. The force would just press him closer against the wall. Taking some insignificant damage, Lord Grimm had managed to charge out of the smoke with 2 jumps, falling forward. This was originally where Dazzling 100 Blossoms was, but when Lord Grimm appeared, Dazzling 100 Blossoms immediately darted out of the way. He had kept some distance between him and the thick smoke. Zhang Jialei wouldn't be so stupid as to stand right in front of it. Thus, he could still dodge out of the way even when Lord Grim used such an unexpected method of attack. With a step, Dazzling Hundred Blossoms stepped back into the room. Creak, the door continued to close. With the way he was falling, Lord Grim was going to hit the door. If that happened, that would be rather embarrassing. Lord Grim hurriedly swung his ninja two again. Bang 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 bang. After switching positions, Dazzling Hundred Blossoms immediately began to attack, but Lord Grim dodged the bullets by swinging his ninja two towards the wall behind, ending up stepping on the top of the door accurately. With a kick, Lord Grim jumped to the other side of the door and the door closed rapidly. Dazzling Hundred Blossoms had to retreat swiftly, almost getting hit in the face by the door. Clank. Slamming shut, the door separated the two characters, one inside the room, the other outside. Since the first level of the castle had to take a lot of weight, the walls were very thick. They weren't something characters could destroy without some effort. Right now, with the two separated like this, they didn't have to worry about a sneak attack coming through the wall. Lord Grim didn't make any moves for now. This was because Yizhu knew the map well. The room had a lot of ways out. If he circled around, he probably wouldn't be able to catch the other, unless Zhang Jialei stayed in the room and didn't move. Right now, the quickest way to continue his assault was to charge inside through this door. However, the door opened outwards, not inwards, which meant that Yizhu couldn't barge inside like Zhang Jialei had barged outside, using the door to cover his back while he faced the other way. If the door had opened inwards, Yizhu would be able to charge in, being able to react no slower than the person waiting on the other side. However, if Yizhu charged inside and Zhang Jialei was ready to ambush him, that would not be good. What should he do? The two characters pressed themselves against the wall, silent and unmoving. End chapter. The King's Avatar. Chapter 1487. The True Hundred Blossoms. Audio source: WurshaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1487. The True Hundred Blossoms. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. The two characters each stood against the wall. The distance between them was very small. The tension was thick in the air. Until messages appeared in the chat. You come in. You come out. The childish exchange swiftly broke the tense atmosphere. The audience didn't know whether to laugh or not. But while this meaningless chat occurred, Yizhu was moving. Lord Grim ended up not going through the door, but he didn't circle around to a different room either. He actually chose to nimbly make his way outside through the window. Then, he swung his ninja two, quickly flipping up to the second-floor window and rolling back inside, having chosen a suitable position. Everyone was caught off guard. With this action, was he planning to directly break through the floor of the second level to ambush from above? It was a complicated task for the fully immersive projection to beautifully display this interior environment, because anything that obstructed the audience view had to be eliminated. Right now, the floor of the second level looked like it was suspended in mid-air. Yizhu's Lord Grim and Zhang Jialei's Dazzling Hundred Blossoms were displayed like that. One above and one below, still at a very close distance, but the distance was now vertical instead of horizontal. On the first floor, Zhang Jialei still hadn't detected anything. Dazzling Hundred Blossoms lifted a gun with one hand and held a grenade in the other. From where he was standing, he could attack every entrance of this room. But right now, Yizhu wasn't planning to use an entrance. Allah! Yizhu very much valued time. He didn't hesitate at all while he was on the second floor. While many people were still processing his actions, he was already beginning to act. The cross-section of this castle was fragile enough. One more attack was enough to break through, and amidst the shattered pieces, Lord Grim plummeted downward. In the blink of an eye, he had already found dazzling Hundred Blossoms' position. The myriad manifestations umbrella swung over, fire. Zhang Jialei's reaction wasn't slow. As soon as he heard a noise above him, even as he lifted his camera to check, his automatic pistol, the silver weapon Hunting Seeker, was already lifted into the air, and the grenade in his left hand was tossed outward. Immediately after, he confirmed the situation above him and continued to toss grenade after grenade, like a weapon master in wuxia, or like a magician with his playing cards. Those grenades flew outward non-stop. Boom, 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 boom. The middle height of the room was instantly swallowed by explosions, just like the passageway earlier, splitting the space in two. Unexpected. Yi Zhu's plan was quite unexpected, but this method was a bit too blunt. The attack made a loud noise when it impacted the floor of the second level, and Zhang Jialei was good enough to immediately react and deal with it. What Yi Zhu gained here was similar to the situation Zhang Jialei had been in when he'd rushed outward through the door earlier. The situation wasn't particularly advantageous for either side. It would come down to whose reaction was faster. Earlier in the passageway, the two of them had tied after an exchange of blows. This time, with one above and one below, who would win the upper hand? Roundhouse kick. Dazzling Hundred Blossoms suddenly used a low-level sharpshooter skill, sweeping around 360 degrees. Miss. There was actually no one next to Dazzling Hundred Blossoms, and Zhang Jialei instantly knew that he had made a mistake in his prediction. He had originally thought that Yi Zhu would take advantage of the cover, using shadow clone technique to swiftly close in. Yet, surprisingly, Yi Zhu hadn't done this. One misstep instantly revealed an opening. Amidst the flashing explosions in midair, Lord Grimm looked like he was flying with an imperial sword, and he came plummeting down with a falling light blade. He had actually stayed in midair for that long. The audience could see clearly that after Lord Grimm broke through the floor, he didn't hurry to the ground. After the myriad manifestations umbrella fired a few shots in gun form, it shifted back to a ninja 2, and was anchored into the ceiling. From the start, Yi Zhu didn't think that his sneak attack from above would directly cause Zhang Jialei any difficulty. He just wanted to create an unusual situation. With this small opening that Zhang Jialei exposed with his mistake, he now attacked. Zhang Jialei had no time to dodge. The falling light blade came right down upon Dazzling Hundred Blossoms. But then, with a blast, Lord Grimm was also thrown aside by a shockwave. There was a hole in the ground, the scar left by the explosion of a landmine. Yi Zhu had seized an opportunity for attack, but he hadn't expected that Zhang Jialei also had an ambush ready. In their second clash, the two of them once again reached a stalemate. But this was only speaking about the battle situation. In terms of damage, Yi Zhu's Lord Grimm had broken through the firing line in the first clash, and suffered bombing in the second before forcefully breaking through the firing line. In doing so, he had taken more than a little bit of damage. After being sent flying by this landmine, Lord Grimm's health had fallen to 42%, having started this round at 57%. 2 times, he had used up his health for the sake of his offensive, but he hadn't managed to win the initiative. From this exchange perspective, even though Yi Zhu had initiated the attack both times, Zhang Jialei had ultimately ended up better off. Defensive fighting. Blue Rain was a defensive team, so of course they were very sensitive to a defensive playstyle. Seeing this situation, Huang Shaoshan immediately sent another text to Yu Wenzhou. Yes. Yu Wenzhou's reply acknowledged this point. And in the televised broadcast, Pan Lin and Li Yibo were still exclaiming about how the two players' incredible reaction speeds and responses made him evenly matched. Those two hadn't even realized the deeper significance of this. This is more like you." Quote. In another area of the stadium, an audience member who was keeping a low profile as he watched the match now uttered this exclamation. Sun Jieping, a former part of the Blood and Blossom duo, a former God-level player, now contributing the last remnants of his strength to Team Heavenly Swords with the limited time he had. Today, he could no longer be considered a star. The attention he'd garnered when first returning had gradually faded away because of his severely limited appearances in Heavenly Swords. Heavenly Swords, where he was now, had no business in the playoffs. For him, the championship dream was already long in the past. He simply remained here as a passerby, all because of that piece of his heart that prevented him from ever giving up on glory completely. Yes, a passerby. His kind of return and on-stage appearance could only be considered passing by. Because of this, Sun Jieping didn't have any regrets about not tagging along with the black horse that was Team Happy. Happy was the starting point for his return. And now, this grassroots team with which he wasn't unfamiliar was actually piercing straight through toward the championship. If he was still in this team, Sun Jieping believed that he would go crazy from his inability to go all out at such a crucial time. Heavenly Swords was a wise choice. Sun Jieping never regretted it. And seeing Happy reach this point, Sun Jieping felt gratified as well. He looked forward to seeing this team create a miracle, just like when they had defeated Excellent Era in the Challenger League. But now, Happy was actually facing off against Tyranny. Toward Tyranny itself, Sun Jieping didn't have any particularly strong feelings. He would pay attention to them only because Zhang Jiale was there, because his former partner, his closest friend, was there. His emotions, his goal, his pursuit, Sun Jieping understood completely. But now, Zhang Jiale collided with Happy. It was really a difficult situation to watch. But Sun Jieping was a simple and direct person. He didn't have any conflicts in his heart. Facing each other on the narrow road, the courageous would emerge victorious. His belief was just that simple. For him, his emotions would never become a burden on the battlefield, and as a spectator in the audience, it was the same. But now, the Zhang Jiale he saw didn't have the furious, desperate stance of before. In particular, it was a far cry from that struggling ferocity that he displayed while leading 100 Blossoms after Sun Jieping had retired from injury. Was this a sign that he no longer had that fighting spirit of before? Of course that wasn't the case, because this right now was the playstyle that truly suited him the best. The 100 Blossoms style was called the most splendid and romantic playstyle in all of Glory. As the inventor of this style, Zhang Jiale certainly wasn't imitating anyone with his use of skills. His technique simply reflected his personality. This was just the kind of person he was. WuxRWorldAudio.com. That sort of furious, desperate hacking and slashing very much went against his character. But in 100 Blossoms, after Sun Jieping was forced to retire from his injury, Zhang Jiale could only take up Sun Jieping's desperate portion of the playstyle as well. In reality, it didn't have to be like this. Sun Jieping had always wanted to say this to Zhang Jiale. But it was entirely because of his own injury that this burden landed upon Zhang Jiale. When the other was so desperately carrying it, what right did Sun Jieping have to tell him not to do this? If you're willing to carry it, then stay strong and advance. This was just the kind of person that Sun Jieping was. He only knew how to staunchly encourage his old friend like this. Unfortunately, in the end, all that Zhang Jiale tasted were the bitter fruits of defeat. It wasn't until he arrived at Tyranny that he could finally set down his burdens of the past. Zhang Jiale no longer had to carry the responsibility of two people by himself. And so, the Zhang Jiale of the earliest Blood and Blossoms era had returned. This was the condition that suited him best. Just in this match, Sun Jeping saw it clearly. The 100 Blossoms playstyle was protection, was cover. It filled the openings left by teammates. It augmented the teammates' offensives. This was an extremely careful and thorough playstyle. It wasn't something that could be accomplished just by throwing around complicated controls. That kind of 100 Blossoms wasn't a true 100 Blossoms. In the time that Zhang Jiale had led 100 Blossoms alone, his technique had grown more refined, but his 100 Blossoms had drifted away somewhat from its essential spirit. But now, it had all returned. In fact, because of his growth from experience, Zhang Jiale's 100 Blossoms playstyle of today was even more careful and precise. Every thread was tightly interwoven, leaking not a single drop. People thought that the 100 Blossoms playstyle still hadn't emerged in this match. That was a big mistake. In the passageway, in mid-air, those bursting explosions were all the 100 Blossoms style. And in this kind of space, when the 100 Blossoms bloomed, there was nowhere to hide. The charging Lord Grimm could only suffer the damage he was supposed to. There were those who thought that the 100 Blossoms playstyle was supposed to consist of non-stop lights and shadows, flashing until no one could see anything. But this kind of view was too simplistic. The true 100 Blossoms wasn't placed everywhere, it just could be placed anywhere. Take as an example using lights to block the opponent's vision. Did that require 360 degrees of surrounding? It didn't. What it truly required was nothing more than, in that most critical moment, a sudden expanse of flashes appearing in the opponent's vision. Boom, 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 boom. In such a small space, the explosions were non-stop. For the moment, Lord Grimm had no way of closing in. It seemed like the explosions weren't being continuously strung together. But every time that Yishu prepared to control Lord Grimm to rush forward, a series of explosions would make his vision go blurry. Yishu completely understood that this was intentional. Given that the opponent was able to accomplish this to this extent, he didn't dare blindly charge forward. The space he had was shrinking, and his exits were already cut off. Lord Grimm was right in the middle of the 100 Blossoms. End chapter.